Welcome back to the Payment Shed podcast, live at FTT Embedded Finance and Super Apps. We are joined this afternoon by Sadra Hosseini, CEO and co-founder, I'm going to say, of Ryft. Sadra, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Please, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career in fintech and payments, and Ryft as a business?
Sure. I'm Sadra, CEO, co-founder, as you said. I'm a third-time entrepreneur. People ask me, why'd you do it? I always say there's got to be something mentally unstable about you to kind of go into this, especially if you're a repeat founder as well. There's easier ways to make money. But yeah, my experience in payments comes from, in our previous business, we were a marketplace platform. We got into the payments game because we were really struggling to find the right payment solution to allow us to monetize payments. And we saw that there's a big opportunity here. So about 4.5, 5 years ago, we started Ryft, which is the payments infrastructure for marketplaces and digital platforms. We've been scaling rapidly, Series B right now, and we're going international to allow platforms, marketplaces to become their own payment processor without getting the licenses and the tech itself.
I find it really interesting because there's been a few founders I've spoken to that were in businesses where payments was just a real pain in the backside for them, and their mindset was, surely we can do this better ourselves, right? We're quite techy, let's just go and have a crack at building it ourselves. So it's good to hear that you guys are another one that had that journey.
Yeah, the naivety keeps you going because you're like, oh, it's easy. I can do it in a couple of days, or 5 years onwards. We're still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I think because payments is so big and it pretty much touches every business, there is a niche there that you can do better, and obviously we found ours in the last few years.
So currently there's a huge amount of hype around agentic commerce. What are you seeing in terms of will consumer behavior?
So as you said, there's a lot of hype. It's exciting, and the future is bright. But in terms of actual consumer behavior, it's still early days. Like we're seeing companies starting to get into, obviously we deal with platforms, so they're at the forefront of this. They're not your legacy kind of B2B businesses where they buy, supply, and sell to end users. So these companies that we work with, they're like neo-fintechs themselves, where they're revolutionizing their own industries. But yeah, what we found is they're trying to figure this out themselves, and they're trying to do proof of concepts where they launch a small product just to see what the uptake is. But still, I would say still very, very early days. But we, as the payments business, we're trying to enable these guys to launch those proof of concepts, because if your underlying solution can't support it, then the kind of endpoint's still moot. But yeah, it's coming. It's still very early days. That's what we see right now.
It's really interesting, I think, with the marketplaces arena, because the way payments companies are looking at this is like, you want the LLM to know that marketplace is one where the payment's likely to be accepted, right? So they have to then have protocols or processes probably that are with the underlying payments company as well, being a green tick to that LLM. Yes, we think if you want to book this holiday through this marketplace, you're probably going to get a positive outcome here, right? And if you're not ahead of the curve with that, you risk losing transactions because the LLM starts going, oh, I had a bad experience there last time, didn't like this booking or this let's go and find another marketplace, right? And then the payments provider gets it in the neck probably because the marketplace starts.
Well, as the platform doesn't, the platform's not happy either, because because of our payment processor, we've lost these merchants now, and we've lost that channel. So that's where it's important for us to be ahead of the curve so that we allow these guys to kind of go into that market as they see it.
Do you think the market's like getting ahead of itself though by acting like, I think we are doing this in a big way, is my personal opinion, but acting like it's mainstream already?
I think it's more of a probably marketing tool where they're trying to, the newer incumbents, they're trying to pull customers over to themselves to say, listen, we figured it out. It's already huge. Use us to get into that. So I think it's more expansion of their TAM into that market. But now is the time to build for it, right? Like everyone's trying to figure this thing out. It's super new. I think just making sure that it's not figured out, and you need to kind of keep that flexibility and agility, both as you're building it and as you go into market. Those things are, I think, quite important. on the payment side and the platform side.
Yeah. So let's say you're a platform, you're trying to figure out what are the signals that you need to have before you start building it, right? Is it the volume? Is it the demand from your underlying customers? Is it the latest model update? What do you think are some of those signals that companies should be looking out for before they start building like that?
So I think volume is probably going to be a lagging indicator. If you're waiting for volume, it's probably already too late. It's definitely workflows. From my point of view, it's definitely workflows. So as you see, end users are finding you in new places in LLMs, AEO, where you see how they're going through your journey on your platform. How does that work? So that's the leading indicator, and that's what you got to build for and give that visibility to. So being discoverable and being in front of the user there is super important. One other place that we see that's quite exciting to get into is, obviously we're talking about consumer right now, but we're seeing B2B start to take off as well. And that's the reason for that is the LLMs themselves, because we're moving to a business model where it's not going to be SaaS anymore. SaaS is taking a bit of a hit. We're moving into API hits. How many times have you hit my API? And we're actually seeing agentic commerce on the B2B side for those flows where I'm not going to charge you £50 a month to use my system. You just used 10,000 API hits. I'm going to charge based on those hits. And that's where we're seeing kind of leading indicators with the platforms that we're working with.
All right, very good. I think the B2B piece has come up a few times today. Like, how do you guys address that? There's a question in here around kind of shifts in payments or commerce, but how do you guys address that with your kind of go-to-market strategy where you've got traditional B2C platforms, but you're now seeing maybe B2B platforms engaging with you guys and becoming part of your customer base? Like, how do you build product around that?
I think what's important, because we're the piping, right? We're the piping for these businesses. We don't really care how money comes in and how money goes out. We need to make sure that we give all that optionality to the platform. So if they're B2C, they'll use the Visa, MasterCard, the card networks. If they're B2B, they'll look at open banking, they'll look at direct debits. You got stable coins kind of coming slowly. It's not quite there yet. But giving optionality is important so that they can take whatever payment methods they want to take in. They want to pay out whatever way. It could be Visa Direct or it could be bank to bank, whatever that is. Giving that optionality is important. And that's what we built for, the full stack from top to bottom. And that's what Ryft gives these platforms, yeah.
And have you got some marketplace customers that have, or platforms even that started B2C and now adding B2B to their stack as well?
So that's a really interesting one, because we actually seen that quite a few times where they go, the platforms we usually work are B2B to C, but now we're seeing B2B to B. So they're actually going in, they've got the end users for their businesses that they're working with, and now they're bringing these businesses. We have, for example, the Botox marketplace where they allow end users to book their Botox, but they also allow the Botox prescribers to then buy from the pharmacies the Botox products. So they've kind of gone full circle, and they're giving the full solution to all the participants in that market, which is exciting. And we're seeing that in multiple different. Hospitality is another big one. You work with businesses like OpenTable, where they're working with restaurants, but they're also allowing the restaurants to buy and sell from their suppliers and the kind of demand gen there. So it's happening, and they're expanding their jurisdictions, the businesses that they're working.
And you guys have payouts as part of your product stack because of that shift, I presume, as well, right? Like, how big a accompanying product is that payouts proposition of yours alongside cards?
Exactly, and by having all that in one solution, you're making it a lot easier for these platforms to then expand into those additional methods. So, yeah, exactly. That's how we do it.
Absolutely. So when we're looking at agentic commerce and the way that things are currently being built, we have so many new protocols being introduced. We have Agent Pay, we have Visa's tokenized platform. We have all of those different things. But discovery, like you already mentioned, is probably the most important aspect of that. is that the only real life use case that we have right now, or are there other things that you're seeing?
I would say that's the most used use case. Like you're now moved to top of funnel, where a user can find a product. They could have done a Google search, but it would have come up with the most kind of SEO product or business. Now because the LLM is picking up more data points and it's looking at it in more of a human way. Okay, what does a review look like? Do I trust the platform itself? What does the supply look like? You're getting products surfaced in a way that you weren't previously, and by focusing on that discoverability, you're giving a leg up to businesses that were really struggling previously, like where they were getting pushed down with Google, getting penalized because they were too small or they didn't have all those kind of touch points. Now those are coming up top. So by using those, like UCP that Google is launching, these are simple implementations for them, but they can become a lot more discoverable and increase their revenues. Shifts like this happen very rarely. Obviously, we saw with internet. Now, I would say it's probably bigger than the internet, like what's happening in terms of what we've seen internally to the business itself. So it's super exciting. Those who are agile will step ahead of everyone else, and those will fall behind.
Does that then overlap with clean product data, catalog visibility, inventory surfacing? Like, do you guys get into that conversation around guiding your customers on? It's a difficult question because, like, as the payments company, how far is that your responsibility, or is that the marketplace then discussing that with their end sub-merchants or customers? Like, I feel like it has to have some origination with the payments platform because it will impact the end conversion.
You're seeing the blurring of the lines, because previously it was, okay, Shopify is doing your web front, Stripe, for example, is doing your payments. There's a full distinction there. Now you're kind of mixing the two together to say, right, you got payments is adding some data, and your e-com side is adding some data there. Mix the two together, and you get better results. So that's how we're positioning to the platforms. We're giving them that additional data. We're guiding them because we're doing AEO internally, like, because we're seeing a big value there. We're guiding them with advice that we've seen internally, and we're giving that to the platforms. And it's a kind of mixture of the two is really adding value to these businesses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So from a practical perspective, do businesses now need to be rushing to become agentic, or you say it's a little bit early for that?
It's good for marketing because the words are getting picked up by Google and all these kind of, and the likes of TechCrunch is sifting and stuff. You don't need to rush to do everything all at once, but being discoverable, giving the LLMs the visibility of what they need to increase that. I would focus on those to build some defensibility, and then as customers start using these workflows more and more, you can double that. We're always pragmatic in terms of Ryft. We try something, as it's working, we double down and keep pushing into that. But that would be my advice.
And then how should businesses be thinking about embedded commerce and monetization in today's market?
So I would say that precedes agentic conversations. Like, that should be the focus, like, especially with the platforms and marketplaces and franchises. That should be the main goal, because payments is becoming core part of these businesses, as it always been, but now they can monetize in easier and easier way. 10 years ago, you would have to go get your own licenses. It takes 18 months, only 8% of businesses are permission to do that. You would have to build the tech, takes 2-3 mil. You have to have a full compliance team. Now, with the help of someone like Ryft, 4 or 5 weeks of integration, you start monetizing your own transactions. You become, in effect, your own payment processor. We've reduced the kind of pain of going to market and monetizing your payments. So that should be, obviously I'm biased, but that should be, regardless of Ryft, that should be the focus, because that could be a big new revenue stream that these guys didn't have access to before.
Do you see, though, obviously from your guys' point of view, with being a pay fac, right? Like, you have that autonomy, but do you have certain customers that would want to be a merchant of record in their own right, and how do you manage those sort of engagements with those types of businesses?
100%. You always have businesses where they want, so it will really come down to the regulation side as well. Some merchants, they want to be a merchant of record. Depending on what market they're in, that would be okay. But some markets you can't be in the flow of funds. That's kind of where we come in. But based on risk levels and the strategy of the platform itself, sometimes they want to do everything themselves, which is completely fine. But how we deal with those businesses is we give them the technical ability. Here's the tech, you do your own licensing, that's completely fine. But then sometimes they don't want to deal with any of it. It's like, I want to plug something in, I want it to just work, let's go, let's kind of push it to the market. So we've got that full flexibility depending on how the platform wants to play around with the payment side.
And do you think we're going to see merchant of record becoming, you guys again, because you deal with so many marketplaces, do you think we're going to see that becoming more mainstream in the next 5 years or so?
Merchant of record. Exactly. We see it going the other way around because they want to remove themselves from that complete flow. So they'll say, right, you guys deal with it, and we'll just pay us our fees, whatever that looks like, and then you guys deal with the rest of the flows. So that's kind of where we see the market move on our side. But you might have seen something completely different.
No, I mean, obviously, I work in embedded payments as well, but I feel like
That's okay, mate.
as acquirers, sometimes we still struggle to comprehend the moving parts of why a business would want to be merchant of record. There's some interesting like distribution type marketplaces where technically they manage the cradle to grave like distribution of those goods, right? So they want to be the merchant of record because they have some huge brands working with them. But technically, in the small print, that customer is contracting directly with the marketplace, right? So you buy a pair of Adidas trainers, and it might look like you're buying them from Adidas, but in the small print, right, there's a distributor that's the MOR, that is kind of the pseudo marketplace, and they're taking all of the risk because they're kind of like, well, we do all of the fulfillment. So yeah, the risk is kind of on us because it's our job to get those trainers from A to B to the customer. If the customer's not happy, then we'll take on that risk. And I think we're seeing this version of like marketplaces where they're not as afraid to take that risk on in some way because they are taking on more of that distribution ecosystem.
And that gives them more margin, right? Because they're taking more of the risk, they'll take a bit more margin. So I think it really comes down to their business model and how they think as a strategy. But giving that flexibility is important. Letting them do their own thing and be able to switch between the two. Sometimes we have merchants start one way and they want to switch to the other side. And if you don't have the right solution in place, it could be really painful. So we've kind of made sure that it's a seamless switch between the two.
Before we let you go, we have a segment on the podcast where we always say it's the shelf of shame. And in this particular case, I would want to say, what is something that frustrates you currently about how people are talking about agentic commerce right now, which you think they should eliminate?
I think for me, it's people talking about it like it's done and dusted and they know what's going on and this is what it's going to be like. I think people are underestimating how complex this is about to get with the use of LLMs. Like we're seeing everything becoming more and more fractured, and that is going to make everything a lot more complex. So that's what's frustrating, to be completely honest, because we're trying to figure out as we go. But yeah, obviously, again, back to being a marketing tool, it's great to say, we figured it out, guys, this is what it's going to be like, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
In the very, very early stages of
Exactly. But that's what's exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Bro, well, thanks for joining us on the show. Where can people get in touch with you, find out a bit more about Ryft?
Yep, you go to the website, ryftpay.com, and LinkedIn as well. We've got the team on there, and myself, Sadra at ryftpay.com. Anyone wants to get in touch, I'm happy.
Out there.
Yeah. It's don't hit me too hard. Yeah.
Bro, thanks for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.